Hi everyone and welcome to my craft room. My name's Julianne Richards and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in southern Tasmania. Welcome to my new series. It's a weekly series of videos that I'm calling 15-minute cards or quick cards or cards in a hurry, whatever way you'd like to say it. I'm going to check my volume, just bear with me. There we go, yeah, it seems all right. Yes, so basically I'm challenging myself to produce a video with one quick 15-minute or less card every week, really just as a challenge to myself, because as a card maker of a few years, I find it really difficult to create a quick card. So if someone says to me, can you make me a card, it's, you know, the blood rushes to my head, and I can't do quick and simple anymore. So this is my challenge to myself, to get some quick cards under the belt, and I thought I'd share that with you as well. And doing one a week, I have plenty of time to think about it in between. So the first card I'm going to do for you today, I have to admit that I have thought about these designs. I have had a bit of a play, particularly today, with this particular technique. As you can see, there's ink all over my fingers, but I will be cutting, scoring, sort of stamping everything with you here today. No sort of pre-cutting stuff, bringing it in and saying, here's something I prepared earlier to get in under the 15 minutes. I will be cutting and stamping everything with you today. So you'll see my big shot, or my cut and emboss machine and my trimmer and everything coming into play today. So I've got my little timer here. I thought I'd probably start that off as soon as I start crafting, not while I'm doing the preamble little talkies before this. So the reason you would need a quick card now and then is like if somebody's come to you and said, can I grab a card that you haven't got? Situations that you don't necessarily have cards lying around, like sympathies or even masculine cards. I find that I don't have a lot of masculine cards lying around. So sometimes you do need a card that's not one that you've already got made, or the ones you've got made are not appropriate. So, okay, so let's get crafting. This is going to be quite a messy technique, so if you're making this for a special occasion, don't make it in the 15 minutes before you leave, because you are not going to get the ink off your fingers before you go. So I'm going to set my timer, my very noisy timer, for 15 minutes and set it off, and let's go. So we'll keep that there so we can see it and count down our time. Okay, so this little card I'm going to make first of all is using the silicone block that you use to normally stamp or to mount your stamps on, as the way of getting the ink onto the paper itself. So it's quite quick, quite unusual, and quite, hopefully you'll see, quite effective. So actually I might move that a little way over the side so it doesn't get knocked. Okay, so I'm going to start with a card base in very vanilla thick cardstock. My usual size card base is 5 3/4 high, the normal width of an A4, which is 8 1/4, and I score it at 4 1/8 to score it in half. Okay, so that's just our little card base there. Before I get rid of my trimmer, I've got some watercolor paper. Had some watercolor paper. See, this is where I'm going to spend my 15 minutes, isn't it? Searching around for the stuff that I've lost. Okay, some watercolored paper. This is from Stampin' Up. It's really good for these sorts of lots of very juicy ink techniques, because it doesn't peel, it doesn't fold too badly, and it really gives a lovely effect to the watery sort of watercolor effects that we're going to be using in this. So this piece of watercolor paper, I'm going to cut it to 4 inches by 5 5/8, so it's an 1/8 of an inch smaller than our card base. And now I can get rid of my trimmer, and I'm going to actually be working with the watercolor paper first of all. So as I say, this is going to be quite messy, so don't be doing this one just as you're about to walk out the door for that special occasion. So the ink block, the block I'm going to be using is this one, the Stampin' Up ink block. It's size H, so it's the one I usually use for my nice long sentiments and things like that. So I'm going to be using that one. And the ink colours I'm going to be using, which I probably should have kept out, are Pretty Peacock, Garden Green, ooh, crash bang, and Pear Pizzazz. So some really nice greens, some really nice soft greens there, and a really dark, beautiful Pretty Peacock. Okay, so what we're going to do is get our ink pads, and I'm going to ink up probably about thirds of the block in the colour. My Pretty Peacock is a particularly juicy stamp pad, and it's like really has a lot of ink in it, whereas some of these older ones are drying out. So this is the Pear Pizzazz. I'm doing that at the other end, so I'm sort of going light to dark. That one's not as juicy at all. I might need to re-ink that one. And then in between, I'm going to do the Garden Green. Now, if you had re-inkers for these inks, you could probably put that on with re-inkers, or use your aqua brushes or something. But I find it easier just to dab it on like that. So, and then I've got my Garden Green in the middle of the two. So they're hopefully going to merge in to each other so that I don't have it a sort of a thick line. I might put a little bit more Pear Pizzazz on the end there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so to help those sort of merge in a bit and to give that sort of watercolour effect, I've got my little spritzer, and it's got some water in it. I'm just going to give it a couple of spritzes, not a lot, but you've got to keep it, got to make it pretty juicy, and then I can bring my watercolour paper in. So this is probably the trickiest part of this particular card. We just want to flip that right over, pop it down, and I'm still going to put it on the top sort of quarter of the card, the top sort of area. Line it up, try and keep it straight, and pop it straight down. You have to give it a few minutes to sort of really merge in. Let the fluid sort of go into the watercolour paper from the ink. I can tell already that I've got probably a bit of a too dry area there in the middle, but we'll see how that turns out. Okay, that's not too bad. It is a little bit dry in the middle there, so I might actually grab my watercolour pen and just give that a little bit of that, just to, there we are, just to I like this at the end. I like this sort of speckled effect at the end, but I did want a solid block of colour there. So that's perfectly fixable. There we go. So hopefully you like that. That's sort of merging from that dark through to the light, and just in that block of colour, just in the middle of our card base. So I'm going to get a couple of wet wipes and get rid of that ink off there before it gets everywhere, or more everywhere. Okay, so we're going to let that dry, or we're going to dry it off. So I'm going to get my heat gun, so don't forgive the noise, just on the first setting, because I don't want to burn or curl it up too much, and just dry off that ink. And it will dry a little bit lighter than you're seeing it there. So when I think of greens and soft blues and Pretty Peacock this particular season, I think of the Forever Fern stamp set, and that's actually the stamp set I'm going to use for this particular card. So just dry that off a little bit. So there's not much to do else with this one. We're down to 8 minutes to go, 8 minutes 13. I think we're going to make it, no worries at all. I'll just straighten that up a little bit as it dries. Okay, that might be, oh, that's dry enough. Okay, Okay, so I'm going to bring in my Forever Fern stamp set and bring back my Pretty Peacock ink. Grab a block, and I'm going to just use one of these little leaf stamps here. Just block that up. I'm just going to pop in the Pretty Peacock just the images of this little leaf, just 3 times across the centre there. I'm going to start with the one in the middle. Which way do I want it? That way. Just pop that one just in the middle there. It's only a very, very pale leaf, but it just gives a little bit of interest, a little bit of something different. And then this one. And then this one. So I did the one in the middle so that I could space them properly, obviously. Okay, so that's that one. Then what I'm going to do is bring in, there's a really cute little, a little set of dots here, which I'm going to again use my Pretty Peacock, and I'm just going to put some dots around the place, just a little bit on and a little bit off our bar of colour there. Here we are, that's probably enough. Maybe some just off the edge. Okay, so just a few dots there just to add a little bit of interest and take it a little bit further out in our block of colour. Okay, so sentiment, and then we're done. Well, nearly. Okay, so you could, depending on what you're rushing out the door to do, you could, I think this would be quite a lovely sympathy card or a congratulations card, something like that. So if you have a favourite sentiment along those lines, congratulations or something like that, I'm going to stick with the Forever Fern. I'm going to say you can do this. Again, in my Pretty Peacock. Part of the saving time with this card is not swapping the colours too much. We stick to one colour and stamp away. So you can do this just there underneath our block of colour. Just like that. And then we're going to bring in our card base and our snail. And pop that on. There we are. So you get the really nice sort of, I might trim that off a bit there. You get the really nice sort of textured effect of the watercolour paper there. It's got a lovely sort of grain to it. That actually is, you know, it saves you putting things through embossing folders and stuff like that. So I'm just going to trim that down a little bit. Just wasn't quite even. There we are, that's better. Okay, so that's that one done. Basically, let's have a look how we went for our time. Basically 3:55, so nearly 4 minutes to go, and I will stop that if I can remember how to stop it there. So that one basically took us just over 11 minutes, and we've achieved that really, really pretty sort of earthy card there. It looks quite dark in this light. It's not actually quite that dark, but yeah, no, it's really, really, I really like the way that the colours sort of graduate down there from the dark to the light. Okay, so that is my first card in a hurry, or my quick card in this series. I will pop a video up on my YouTube channel every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, so that's Australian Daylight Savings Time, and let's see how far I can go, you know, how many weeks I can keep coming up with something a little bit different and a little bit quick. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me. I hope you set your alarm clock for every Wednesday at 10 or watch for the notifications and join me for this challenge that I have set for myself. And I will see you all next time.